Welcome, USMLEers! My name is Zuk Azalishvili and I'm the founder of USMLE. USMLE is an online podcast for the highest yield basic science and clinical knowledge tested on USMLE Step 1 and USMLE Step 2 CK. The information discussed in this podcast is intended only for educational purposes. It's not intended to prevent, diagnose, or to treat the medical conditions in real clinical practice, nor is it intended to reflect the policy and the guidelines of various health institutions. Simply put, we serve you to butcher your STEP exams. Please subscribe to our podcast, Facebook, Instagram pages, and the YouTube channels down below in the description of this episode so that we keep you tuned for the news at USMLE. Now, let's start rolling. Today we'll talk about how to register for the USMLE Step 1. Before we dive deep into details, let me list the 5 basic steps in order to apply for the USMLE Step 1. First, you need to get an EcfmG ID, which is the same thing as USMLE ID. After this, you have to create an EcfmG account. After creating an account, then you have to apply for EcfmG Certificate first. Once you have the EcfmG Certificate, the 4th step is to apply for the USMLE Step 1 exam itself. And finally, you have to schedule an appointment through the Prometric Center. Before we start, let's briefly overview the importance of the USMLE exams. All people, no matter whether they are US medical graduates, USIMGs, which is International Medical Graduates, US citizens, or non-US IMGs, which is International Medical Graduates, non-US citizens, must take USMLE exams in order to pursue the medical residency in the United States. And you have to pass Step 1, Step 2 CK, and Step 2 CS in order to send your residency application to the different residency programs in the US. There's a small caveat about the USMLE Step 2 CS because, as you know, this is a clinical skills exam, and since it involves the human-to-human interaction, it's suspended due to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And there are some people saying that USMLE Step 2 CS should be canceled altogether, and some people say that USMLE Step 2 CS should become an online exam. And we will definitely keep you informed about this, so stay tuned for this information at USMLE. As for the Step 3, it's not necessary to apply for the residency to the United States. Some people prefer taking Step 3 before they apply for residency, while other people take USMLE Step 3 while they are in their residency years. Now we will focus on how international medical graduates, or IMGs, apply for USMLE Step 1. First step is to get EcfmG ID, that is USMLE ID. They are the same things. And USMLE ID is one of the most important ID numbers that you will get during this registration process, because you will need the USMLE ID in order to register not only for the USMLE Step 1, but also for the USMLE Step 2 CK and USMLE Step 2 CS. In order to get the EcfmG ID, you need to go onto the website called www.ecfmg.org. Let me explain what the abbreviation EcfmG stands for. EcfmG stands for Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. It's an organization in the United States which takes care of foreign medical graduates who want to pursue the residency in the United States. And therefore, IMGs, or International Medical Graduates, should communicate with EcfmG in order to take their USMLE Step 1, Step 2 CK, and Step 2 CS. Once you go onto the website ecfmg.org, then you need to click the online services at the top of the screen in the middle on the yellow background. And then you click the button called OASIS. OASIS is an abbreviation and it stands for Online Applicant Status and Information System. Once you click OASIS, then you need to click the button called Go to OASIS. And at this point, the software will require you to fill in your USMLE ID. But we don't have the USMLE ID at this point. Therefore, we should start applying for the USMLE ID from the same page. And you start the online application form for the EcfmG ID where you fill in your personal information such as your first name, last name, gender, medical school, and etc. After this application form, you will get an email from EcfmG in 3 to 5 business days saying that you have been issued an USMLE ID. After you have an EcfmG ID, then you need to create an EcfmG account. For this, once again, you go to the EcfmG website, which is www.ecfmg.org. Then you go to Online Services at the top of the screen, in the middle on the yellow background. But at this time, you click on something called IWA or IWA, standing for Interactive Web Applications. Once you click on IWA, it will request you to fill in your EcfmG ID and the password. But you don't have the password because you don't have the EcfmG account yet. Therefore, from the same page, you will start registering for the EcfmG account. And once again, you will fill in your personal information, and in a second, you will have the EcfmG account. And once you have the account, you have to log in to your EcfmG account, and let's say how we do this. Once again, we go to the ecfmg.org, then we click on the Online Services, then on the IWA, then we fill in our EcfmG ID and the password, and that's it. We are in the EcfmG account. On the left side of the screen, you will see Register for EcfmG Certificate, and this is the third step that we'll talk about. EcfmG Certificate is a totally different thing compared to the USMLE Step 1. EcfmG Certificate is a certificate given to the international medical graduates after they pass USMLE Step 2 CS that they have passed all the required exams and now they are eligible in order to apply for the US medical residency programs. And the process of applying for the EcfmG certificate has two parts. There is an online part, which is held by the EcfmG website, and then there is the part called Form 186, which I will talk to you in a second. But first, let's talk about the online part. Once again, now we are in our EcfmG account, and on the left side of the screen, we click Apply for EcfmG Certificate. And in the online part, we type in our personal information like our first name, last name, gender, medical school, and etc. And please keep in mind that by the time that this episode is being recorded, EcfmG Certificate costs $145. However, the fee will likely increase in the future. Therefore, you should always go to ecfmg.org/fees in order to see the updated information about the fees of EcfmG Certificate and the USMLE Step 1 and the other USMLE exams too. Okay, once we have finished the online part for the EcfmG Certificate, then EcfmG gives us the document called Form 186. Form 186 is an identification document. It simply says that the person who is applying for the EcfmG certificate is really you. You have to download the Form 186 and you have to fill it in, and then you have to schedule an appointment with a notary through a website called notarycam.com. Notary is a person who will talk to you through the webcam, and they will verify that the person who is applying for the EcfmG certificate is really you. You will have to show them your passport and you will have to upload your filled in Form 186. And then the notary will send this information to the EcfmG, and finally, within the 10 business days, i.e. within the 2 weeks, you will get an email from EcfmG saying that now EcfmG has verified your identity and you are totally eligible to start applying for the USMLE Step 1. Once you get this email, now you can finally apply for the USMLE Step 1. And for this, once again, we have to log into ecfmg.org. Then we need to click Online Services, then IWA, which is Interactive Web Applications. Then we need to log in into our account. And on the left side of the screen, we need to click Apply for USMLE Step 1. Just like the application process for EcfmG Certificate, the application process for USMLE Step 1 also has 2 parts. The first part is the online part, at the end of which you pay the USMLE fee. And the second part is something called status verification that I'll talk to you about in a minute. But before that, let's focus on the online part. In the online part, you once again fill in your personal information, and at the same time you choose something called eligibility period. Eligibility period is a 3 months period in which the medical student can take the USMLE Step 1 exam whenever she or he wants to. For example, if the medical student chooses an eligibility period starting from March 4, 2021 and ending at June 4, 2021, then the medical student will be able to take the USMLE Step 1 exam anytime within this restricted period. At the end of the online application process, you will have to pay for the USMLE Step 1 exam, and the fee at the current moment is $965. However, please keep in mind that the fee for USMLE Step 1 will likely increase in the future, and in order to check the updated fees, you have to visit ecfmg.org/fees. At the same time, there is one more caveat here. If you are taking the USMLE Step 1 outside of the United States and Canada, you will also have to pay an additional fee called International Test Delivery Surcharge. This is simply a fee that is necessary for the EcfmG to send your test to the examination center of another country. And the International Test Delivery Surcharge varies from country to country, it varies from continent to continent, and once again, it is subject to change, so you have to visit ecfmg.org/fees in order to check up on these fees. Once you have paid for USMLE Step 1 and possibly your International Test Delivery Surcharge, then you have to undergo something called status verification. In this process, EcfmG will contact your medical school, and your medical school should verify your student status. In other words, your medical school must inform the EcfmG that you are truly a medical student enrolled in their medical educational program so that you are eligible to take the USMLE Step 1 exam. And please check up on the administration of your medical school so that they quickly verify your student status. And after this status verification happens by your medical school, then within the 10 business days, but that's an approximation, you will receive another email from EcfmG containing the document called scheduling permit. Just like I said about EcfmG ID, I will say the same thing for scheduling permit. Scheduling permit is one of the most important, if not the most important, documents that you need to take any of your USMLE STEP exams, not only USMLE Step 1. And you must absolutely, unequivocally take the scheduling permit to the examination center on the test day. And you can present your scheduling permit either electronically, for example, via your mobile phone or a computer, or you can present your scheduling permit as a hard copy, as a paper. And I strongly suggest that you print the scheduling permit beforehand so that if your technical devices have some issues and problems on your test day, you can still present your scheduling permit as a hard copy, and then you will be admitted and allowed to take the USMLE Step 1. Otherwise, if you have any trouble presenting the scheduling permit on the test day, you will not be admitted and you will not be allowed to take the Step 1. Okay, once we have the scheduling permit, then there is only one step left before we are finished with the application process. And this step is to schedule an appointment on your preferable day. But for this, we will use a different website. This website is www.prometric.com. Once you go to this website, then you should search USMLE Step 1 in the search field, and then you should click on the USMLE Step 1. And then we should click Schedule an Appointment. After this point, application process is extremely easy. It's really super easy because Prometric website does everything for you. First of all, you should indicate the country in which you plan to take your USMLE Step 1, and after you indicate the country, then the Prometric Center itself, the Prometric Center website, will show you all the available Prometric centers or the examination centers available in that country in the different cities, and then you should choose that Prometric Center which is the most comfortable for you. After choosing the appropriate examination center, you should choose the available date in that particular examination center and then available time during the day, because as you know, USMLE Step 1 is quite a lengthy exam. It lasts 8 hours in total, and there are 7 question blocks, each lasting 1 hour. There is 45-minute break, and there are 15 minutes for the tutorial, attending which is completely optional. And after you have chosen your comfortable Prometric Center, the Prometric Center that's most comfortable for you to reach, and the available date and available time, that's it. You're all set. The Prometric website will send you an email which is called confirmation notice, and this email will say that you have an official appointment for USMLE Step 1 in that particular Prometric Center on that day during that time of the day. One more caveat: if you have to reschedule the date of your USMLE exams, in this case USMLE Step 1 exam, for any possible reason, please do it as soon as you can, as early as you can, because if you reschedule the date of your USMLE Step 1 exam within the last month, within the month of your original test date, you will have to pay an additional fee to the Prometric Center. However, this will not happen if you don't reschedule your test day. And I would like to recommend you to start the application process approximately 6 months before your test day. I'm not saying that this whole application process takes 6 months. It takes approximately 1 month or 1 month and a half, but still we need to do this formal job beforehand, and then we won't have to be anxious, we won't have to worry about this application process, and we will have time to concentrate on our studies. And one more point before we wrap up: please pause this episode from time to time and follow the instructions on your device, for example your mobile phone or a computer. And I know that following the instructions without seeing the actual screen in front of you is very difficult, but if you pause this episode time to time, and if you follow the instructions on the EcfmG website, then it will become super easy. Okay, we have come to an end of our today's episode, and let's summarize everything that we've discussed today. main take-home points of today's episode is that there are 5 basic steps in order to apply for the USMLE Step 1. First, we have to get the EcfmG ID. After getting the USMLE ID or the EcfmG ID, then we have to create the EcfmG account. Then we have to apply for EcfmG Certificate, which currently costs $145. After we have gone through the application process for the EcfmG Certificate, then we have to apply for the USMLE Step 1 exam itself. And finally, once we have the scheduling permit, then we can schedule our official appointment via prometriccenter.com. At the same time, I strongly suggest that you start application process approximately 6 months before your test day. And once again, the total duration of USMLE Step 1 application process is approximately 1 month or 1 month and a half, but still we need to be cautious and we need to do this formal work beforehand, and then we will be able to concentrate on our studies. Additionally, if you have to reschedule your original USMLE Step 1 date, please do it as soon as you can so that you avoid an additional rescheduling fee that you will have to pay to the Prometric Center. And finally, in order to get the maximum out of this episode, I would suggest that you pause time by time and you follow the instructions through your computer screen or the mobile phone in order to register for the USMLE Step 1. You can leave the voice message on this episode to help us improve our podcast for you. So thank you for your kind attention, USMLEers, and see you on the next episode.